Good afternoon. I'm Adele Johnson, Executive Director of the Black History Museum and Cultural Center of Virginia, where our mission is to preserve stories that inspire by telling the untold stories, the undertold stories, and often forgotten stories about the triumphs and the contributions of our ancestors. And we also celebrate the heroes of today. We have great news. I'm happy to share with you. Our museum will be reopening soon, so please stay in touch and make plans to visit. And more good news, our featured exhibition titled Paradox of Liberty, Slavery at Jefferson's Monticello has been extended until November. This exhibition does not focus on Thomas Jefferson. Instead, it gives voice to the 607 enslaved children, women, and men who built and maintained Monticello. It's timely that we have this exhibition because it helps to introduce a conversation about the impact that slavery has on us today. So we look forward to welcoming you back to the museum very soon to see this exhibition and more. We're excited also, however, that you have joined us for our community conversation, Voices for Change. This is our second segment, and the overarching goal of this program is to be a catalyst for both conversation and action. We want people to take time to reflect on who we are, what we stand for, and what we, both individually and jointly, can do to make tomorrow better than today. It's for this reason that the Black History Museum is hosting this series. In a few minutes and over the next few weeks, you'll hear from several people, some who you know and recognize and others that you don't. And that's because everyone's opinion is important. We believe that each of us has a story, and that sharing our personal stories helps to foster productive conversation as well as understanding. Today we're focusing on youth. First, we will hear from Dr. Carmen Foster, who will set the tone with some historical context, because sometimes we forget that young people have taken a leadership role in almost every change in America. Then we'll hear from our youth. They'll be sharing their perspectives, their beliefs, and their social justice activities. During the program, we will pose some questions to you on the screen, and your combined responses will be shown as a percentage. So please participate because we want to know what you're thinking too. Again, today's program is Youth and Social Justice. So let's begin.
I was born and raised in Richmond, and I left in my mid-30s to live in Boston for many years. As a Black Southerner living in the North, that opportunity broadened my awareness beyond Richmond. It gave me global perspectives as well. I returned to Richmond a decade later to care for my aging parents, and I listened well to their stories. My encore career now is as a historian and a leadership coach to help guide the next generation. According to Dr. Martin Luther King, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. The struggle for social justice is the quest for human dignity. It's a quest that will take lifetimes to rebalance a world order that has for generations exploited human beings as human capital for private greed and gain. America is in the midst of incredible times right now. Some would say at a tipping point for change. But the struggle for social justice is slow, and it evolves over a continuum of time. The goal is really to make progress in our own lifetime. My favorite Frederick Douglass quote is, "Without the struggle, there can be no progress." America's Declaration of Independence proclaims life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And the preamble of America's Constitution proclaims, "We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. These cornerstone documents for our democracy are a blueprint for the vision that respects human dignity, but these principles are a paradox. My perspective on social justice is the quest to ensure equal access to income distribution, access to assets like capital and land, employment opportunities, education and knowledge, access to health services, security and safety, and opportunities for civic and political participation. Those who advocate for social justice are architects in a fierce, long-term struggle to make that philosophy into reality for everyone. Why? There are no easy answers. It takes courage, stamina, conviction to be a catalyst for change. On February 22nd, 1960, I was 8 years old. 34 Virginia Union students were arrested in downtown Richmond. They staged a nonviolent protest to be served in the dining room at the Thalhimer's department store. One of those 34 students was my 20-year-old cousin, Wendell Foster Jr. He lived across the street from me. He and his college classmates took a stand for social justice. That stand took courage. He and his classmates went to jail. There was a lot of talk among our family wondering whether he would be able to get a teaching job. In fact, his jail record was only expunged a little more than a year ago in 2019. With the support of family and friends, he is still a math teacher to this day.
2020 marks the 60th anniversary of when a group of Virginia Union University students stood up for civil rights to help end segregation by sitting down at a whites-only lunch counter inside of Thalhimer's. That group is better known as the Richmond 34.
We went in there, sat around the counter. Of course, we got all the negativity, and they closed the counter while we were there, and no one said a word.
We weren't there very long before management came and approached us and told us that we had to leave because we were trespassing. And if you don't leave, you're going to be arrested. And I said, well, I'm not going to leave right now. So they arrested me.
All 34 of them were arrested and charged with trespassing.
I was the first on the first floor to be arrested, and I sat in that paddy wagon for a long time, seemingly to me.
The students were then taken to jail but released shortly after their bail was posted, thanks to community members who contributed, as well as VUU Vice President at the time, Dr. Alex James, who put up his house as collateral.
As we were ushered out, we heard all this pandemonium and noise outside. People were doing like this and giving us the high five, and I looked down the block and there were people from block to block.
What was that moment like when you hear the whole crowd?
It was reassuring that what we were doing was right. It was reassuring that what we were doing was going to make a difference.
The Richmond 34 were convicted and fined, but appealed the ruling. It wasn't until 1965, 5 years later, that all the charges were ultimately dismissed. They would learn decades later that since no resolution to their cases had ever been filed, their criminal records were never expunged. However, thanks to a collective effort by local community and government leaders, those records were finally expunged on the 59th anniversary of their sit-in.
It was an awesome feeling. I tell family and I tell friends and I tell young people, you don't know how good it felt not to have a cloud hanging over your head, even though I didn't know it was hanging over my head.
The Richmond 34, who were brave individuals and souls.
Thanks to a proclamation by Mayor LeVar Stoney last year, February 22nd has been declared Richmond 34 Day to serve as a reminder of what this group accomplished by protesting.
I don't have to worry about if I go into this particular restaurant, can I sit down or not sit down to eat? I just go in and we all sit down.
One individual and all of us can make a difference. It doesn't take 34 to make a difference. I realized that one person can make a difference.
They were barely out of their teens when they felt compelled to transform their beliefs into action. But I'm sure they wouldn't want to consider themselves heroes. They were living out their principles to support human dignity. They were walking their talk. They were living their creed. They were being true to their values. They were catalysts for change.
I define social justice as a set of tactics, principles, and strategies aimed at undoing and rectifying systems of oppression. Social justice isn't just going to a march and calling it a day. It is, as Angela Davis puts it, a constant struggle. It is a lifestyle that one takes on in the recognition that another world is possible and something to be fought for. A social justice issue that me and my peers talk about a lot is police brutality. Given the recent extralegal murders of Black people across the country, we think it's really important that we have conversations in our families and our communities about state-sanctioned racism in the United States, institutional racism, police brutality, and the fight for racial justice with the Black Lives Matter movement. In May 2020, I started Ignite Collective. Ignite Collective is a group of DC-based artists and activists engaging in the fight for racial justice within our own communities through non-violent direct action tactics like protests and demonstrations, the sale of merchandise made by young DC artists, 100% of the profits of which go towards the Black Lives Matter movement in the DMV area, as well as hosting a series of webinars and seminars aimed at sparking dialogue about racism in the United States and how to get involved in the fight for racial justice. I started Ignite Collective because I sensed that there is a rage and a fervor and a desire on the part of the young people in around me to get involved in the Black Lives Matter movement, but not a organized way to do so. And I believed in order for us to be most effective, we had to find a way to get involved that was coherent, that was tactical, and that was strategized. And so I created Ignite Collective in response to the desires on part of my peers and the people in my community to get involved, but who sensed that they didn't have a direct or purposeful way to do so. I think that youth leadership is really important because we are quite literally the future, and having a say in and being able to govern the course of activism and the course of movements within this country is really important because the course of those movements will decide also the course of our future and how we live. And I think it's really important that we center the work and the voices of young people in the movement because we are the people that are going to live in the aftermath of something that happens if we do end up failing. And it's important that we have a say in what we think our future should look like and what justice for us means and for our generation. When I was young, I had conversations with my parents about slavery and segregation and the civil rights movement, but it wasn't until third grade that I truly experienced my first racist incident. While in line with my peers to go to recess, we were talking about how excited we were for the summertime, and I mentioned that I was really excited to go to the beach so I could get tan. A white peer of mine turned around and said, "Ian, you're Black, you can't get tans, Black people don't get tan." When our teacher found out, she made him write an apology letter to me. And in the apology letter, he said, "I apologize for saying that you can't tan, Ian. It's not your fault that you're Black." And I remember reading this letter and feeling as if there was something wrong with me because of the color of my skin. And that was the first time that I truly had to reckon with the pervasiveness of racism in our communities and within the country more generally. And it was really a truly transformative experience for me.
the dancers that you can see pictured at the Robert E. Lee statue located in Richmond, Virginia.
Well, dance is a way to express yourself. It's a form of art that you can use to word without speaking how you would feel or just what you want others to believe.
Yeah, like she said, it's kind of a way to express yourself, and it allows you to express your feelings. So also dance, the attitude that you have, like what goes into it is what you get back. So if you go into it with a bad attitude, you're going to get back the same bad attitude, and you're not going to get anything from it. But what we did at the statue is we came into it with a good attitude, and there obviously was a good response.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I would say it's another way of protest. So some people march, some people sing, some people do all these things. But our way was definitely using dance for the better and using the community behind us to portray our own message.
Yeah, we want people to know that there are a lot of different ways to protest. You can use whatever gifts that you have, and just knowing that you can make a change without having to be right on the front line.
So I think I can say for the both of us that we definitely wanted to make people feel powerful and let them know that you can have your own opinions that lead to something greater for you.
Just knowing that you have hope and that you are a part of a bigger picture. So when you are fighting, you're fighting for others as well and the future generations out there.
Right now, nothing is going to happen. We're fighting for the next generation. My mother fought for me. My mother was alive when everything happened with Ronnie King. I wasn't able to go there because she didn't want to take me there, but we still felt that type of oppression for a long time. Nothing is going to change right now, and hopefully this time around, it's going to change for the next generation.
From a personal standpoint, I tried to promote social justice by making sure that some of those tough conversations are had with friends and coworkers that may be uncomfortable with the concepts of inequity and privilege. I don't think these conversations are easy for most folks to have generally, and it becomes even harder when you're around friends, in some cases family, and coworkers that are not comfortable acknowledging and identifying the ways in which they have benefited from systemic situations. So I think from a personal standpoint, while I have many friends that do protests and are very active in social media, a way in which I try to, on a very basic level, contribute is by getting educated and reading about the issues themselves and having the statistical backing to understand the facts of the situations so that I can have a very intelligent and thoughtful discussion with folks who are either not familiar or not comfortable having the conversation previously. My hope is that a lot of the recent momentum around social justice, particularly racial inequities, continues in the coming months and in the coming years, long after it's popular to be posting things on social media and protesting. And my hope is that more than anything else, a lot of these conversations result in real systemic change for the populations that for centuries at this point have gone underrepresented and under-addressed. So when it comes to the actual heroes in my mind that have been pushing for this social justice, there are some famous examples that are close to me personally. As I think about what motivates me, examples like MLK and Malcolm X, but there are also some lesser-known examples, folks like John Hope Bryant, Peter Newfold with the Innocence Project, or even young Congress folks like AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who I think are really trying to address the system in ways that maybe folks didn't even know it could be addressed. Trying to unseat certain folks who've been in positions of power to bring about the change for communities that feel like they've been truly, by definition, underrepresented for years and years.
I define social justice as being culturally aware enough to identify issues negatively affecting various individuals, and then being compassionate enough to look beyond yourself and fight for those who have largely been overlooked and or oppressed in some form or fashion. I think the biggest injustice that I face is being limited to a label. Whether that be female, black, and or queer, forcing someone into any label and then judging them based on that is certainly unfair, but undoubtedly restricting to the human form. I don't feel that there's any one moment, but rather a culmination of moments in which I realize black individuals are treated differently than those of other races. I feel that, or rather have experienced as a black individual in America, that viewing the black diaspora as irrelevant and subhuman is largely intertwined into American, for lack of better terms, culture. For example, from the moment I was born, I had to carry the last name of what I assumed to be that of a slave master, and then forced to live without direct knowledge of my lineage. Unfortunately, lost to that of enslavement, and America not deeming my history important enough to be remembered. While my white counterparts can trace their ancestry with primary sources that have been passed through generations. Another example is at a young age, I was told that my hair was unruly and not presentable, while my white counterparts never had to worry about the way people perceive their hair. Also, my predominantly black neighborhood does not have access to fresh foods at grocery stores, while surrounding predominantly white neighborhoods do. All these injustices, along with countless others, are things we don't question throughout our lifetimes. They just are seemingly normal in the everyday lives of Americans. So no, I cannot draw on any one specific moment, but rather a lifetime of moments proving how differently black people are treated.
The next generations of our youth must be taught the true history of our communities and our nation. They are the ones that will need skills and tools to make progress, to live out our democratic principles in the face of America's enduring paradigms. The struggle for social justice is the quest for human dignity. How will each of us embrace the courage to be a catalyst for change?
My social justice role models are James Baldwin, Angela Davis, and Audre Lorde. As an aspiring writer, I think constantly about how I can use my writing to influence the Black Lives Matter movement and the struggle for racial justice in this country. And all three of those writers, activists, thinkers, and intellectuals were so tactful in how they used their work and how they used their writing in order to encourage conversation within communities and create and devise and theorize around tactics and strategies aimed at employing forms of racial justice and engaging in the struggle for racial justice.
My hope overall is just that folks who are motivated to really speak out and take action around social justice continue to do so, and the folks that previously have been on the sidelines see the amount of momentum and, for better or worse, popularity that has been generated in recent weeks and months, and decide to jump in themselves, because ultimately I think this is going to be something that everyone needs to contribute to for there to be real systemic change.
Well, there are many trailblazers who created a segue for youth such as myself to speak up about issues that matter. I wouldn't say that I have any social justice role models. There are various figures who have had a considerable impact on the way that I view certain things, but I feel that it's foolish to idealize any one particular individual, largely due to the fact that there is no one person that can be the perfect example of leadership, and many aspects of social justice are still undergoing greatly needed changes.
And no matter what, you always want to show like a good look for yourself.
Yeah, you represent more than yourself.
Yes, you're representing everyone. So I think we were both definitely representing Colored Dancer when we were doing this. And since then, they have come out with different color point shoes, and there have been so many more guideline changes, and we're seeing changes in the world every single day.
Yes, so it's great to know that you can be a part of something way bigger.
We always is, but I feel like this. How many mothers have to cry? How many brothers gotta die? How many more times? How many more times? How many more marches? How many more signs? How many more lives? How many more times?
Thank you so much for participating in our program. What we hope you take away is a willingness to be open to difference. We want you to initiate conversations, and we want you to listen. And we also want you to be a voice for change. If not now, when? We invite you to send your comments to us as well as post them on social media. And we hope you'll also want to learn more about the Black History Museum. And you may also want to take a second look at our program today. So go to our website, blackhistorymuseum.org. See you next time.